Yeah, I'd like to call to order today our city council meeting, Tuesday, March 1st, 2022, 5:30 p.m. And I'd like to ask the mayor to lead us in an invocation and pledge of allegiance.
Please bow with me. Lord, thank you once again for a wonderful day. Thank you for a wonderful life. Thank you for the wonderful city that we live in, the staff that keeps it running smoothly. We ask that you watch over our winter residents that have flooded the town, and also in the next coming week, the people that are coming in for the race, that they all remain safe and happy. We also ask that we throw big prayers out to the Ukraine area, and that skirmish ends, and we pray for Putin so he sees Christ and can get his head up, he can put his head right, we ask that all we do in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mayor. And welcome back.
Thank you. Glad to be back.
All right. Well, we'll see. Okay, Kathy, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Shute.
Here.
Bishop.
Here.
Carlisle.
Here.
Detman.
Here.
Stewart.
Here.
Lawrence.
Here. Okay, I'd like to announce business from the audience procedure. If you would like to speak on something that is not on the agenda, if you'll see Miss Kathy Haley, she'll give you the proper form to fill out, and at the appropriate time, you can come up and speak in front of council. Thank you. Mayor's report.
Just a few things. I see our illustrious Mayor Hensley's in the audience, and I would like to thank you, George, for the reading the proclamation at the Baptist Church 100th anniversary and filling in for me. But
You looked real good.
they said it was much better, so I don't know which way it was better, but I do appreciate you doing that. Thanks for doing that for us. Our next meeting is on the 15th. It's posted at 5:30, but remember it's at 3 o'clock on the 15th because Fan Fest is that day. The races are coming, so we've got a couple more weeks before we get a ton of people in town. And we do have a star in our audience, is Mark Valero up here, if you guys know Mark with the paper. He is also the headliner for the Fan Fest with Raising Cane, so part of the band, but they do a wonderful job. But thank you for what you do, Mark, and for covering our council meetings. And also the Heritage Festival is coming up on the 12th and the 13th, and everybody is invited to attend. It's out at the Pierce Lockett Ranch on the Okeechobee line. It was a pretty cool event last year. There's a lot of history going on out there. But Terry Mendel, thank you for what you do for that, and Bobby Lee and the rest of the Historical Heritage Society, I guess.
It's a great event.
It's a good event, and that's all I have. Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I was trying to get out of this one, but I guess this is, I don't want to say, this is the best, hardest proclamation I ever do, and every year it just gets worse. But for me, not for them, this is Ridge Area Kathleen Borders with Ridge Area ARC, and it's the Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month, and we have a proclamation for that, and if I make this through, it'll be a wonderful event for me. So, whereas Ridge Area ARC is involved in advocating for the programs that promote positive changes that allow persons with developmental disabilities to dream, believe, and achieve their personal individual greatness, and where Ridge Area ARC encourages all Florida citizens to actively participate in the events, appropriately recognize and celebrate Florida's diverse population, including persons with developmental disabilities. Whereas Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month in March has been established to promote awareness and understanding of the opportunities and challenges and needs of persons with developmental disabilities. Whereas Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month also recognizes Florida's public policy accomplishments concerning persons with developmental disabilities, as well as identifying the improvements to public policy that are needed to ensure that all Florida citizens with developmental disabilities have the capacity to lead full, productive, and engaged lives. Whereas it is necessary and appropriate that local communities such as Sebring support the mission and purpose of Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month and encourage their citizens to recognize and respect the important commemoration. Now therefore be it resolved that I, John Shute, Mayor of the City of Sebring, Florida, do hereby proclaim March 2022 as Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month in the City of Sebring and encourage all Americans to support these organizations and their noble humanitarian missions. So, I did it.
She's gonna torture me with pictures.
It's all
So,
yours.
so I also have a request. We have this great event that we refer to as Torture Mayor Shoup. Actually, no. It's called Scarf Bombing, and it's really just a visual event to raise awareness. And every year we come before you and we ask that we are able to scarf bomb your circle, and we promise to remove any scarves that are left there at the end of March. So I know that typically we work around race week, and that has been the request in the past, and we would love to do that again this year. So with your permission, we would love to scarf bomb the circle.
I got a question. How many scarves are ever left?
In Sebring, 0.
That's
I
right.
think we had 1 in 3 years in Avon Park. So usually no. But the way it works is we wrap scarves around your light poles, and the scarves have little tags that ask people, if you take this, you're agreeing to advocate for people with disabilities, and we hope that you will take a picture and put it on our social media and just basically raise awareness. So what do you think? Are we
Sounds
allowed to do it
good.
again this year?
Yeah, go for it.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Kathleen.
We appreciate
Okay,
it.
thank you very much.
Let's do a motion.
Is that a motion?
Yeah.
Second?
No, I need a motion.
Oh, I make a motion that we allow the scarves on the circle.
Second?
Okay, have a motion and a second. Any comments from council members or questions? Any comments or questions from anybody in the audience? Nope. Okay, Kathy, would you call the roll, please?
Bishop.
Yes.
Carlisle.
Yes.
Detman.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
Lawrence.
Yes. Okay, your motion is passed. Okay, thank you. Okay, is that it, Mayor?
That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Council members' concerns, comments, or liaison reports. I'll start with you, Mr. Carlisle.
None.
Mr. Stewart.
No report.
Okay. Mr. Detman.
Yes, actually, I do have 2 items. I was very happy to accept an invitation last Thursday, the 24th, at one of our local elementary schools for the 5th graders Tropicana speech contest. So they introduced me as Chief Detman, and I said, no, it's Tom now, and that's all good. And had a really, really nice time. There were 12 kids. They were super, super bright, 5th graders, very articulate. The speeches were so hard to grade to come up with the first, second, and third place. It was at Sun Lake Elementary. It was a great, great morning. First time I had to be up before 7 o'clock in the morning in a long time. Also, I'd like to recognize that Miss Kathy Haley, to my right, our city clerk, yesterday she celebrated her 31st anniversary in service to the city of Sebring. And if I'm reading the tea leaves right, I think she's got maybe 4 more years to go to make 35 and out.
That's the plan.
Congratulations,
Thank you.
Kathy. Great job, too. Yes, ma'am. That's it.
Great. Mr. Bishop.
All good.
The only thing I'd like to add a little bit to what the mayor has said is we do have race week coming up in a couple of weeks. It's actually going to start a little early this time on Saturday of the week before. If you have a reserved spot out there, there's going to be racing and practicing on Saturday and Sunday. And then they're going to take a break on Monday. I say they, meaning the fans, us. The racers will still be there. And then we have the truck parade on Tuesday afternoon after our council meeting. But we get actually about 8 days of racing this time, so that's going to be a great thing. And I encourage everybody to go out there. If you haven't been out there before, please go out and enjoy yourself responsibly. So, thank you. Yes, sir.
Don't forget, next Tuesday is Election Day.
Oh, yeah,
So don't forget to get out and vote,
please.
And early voting.
if you're a citizen of the city of Sebring, so.
And early voting is
rest
started
of you
Monday
can
and goes
just-
through Friday
Yeah.
at the supervisor of elections office. So if you can early vote, early vote.
Yeah, that's all week this week, early voting, and then next Tuesday is the
4:30
actual
Friday.
election day.
Yep.
Yeah.
I get a question, people that are from out of town, but that own property pay taxes here, are they allowed to vote or not?
You have to
If
be a
you're
resident.
registered,
You have to be a registered voter of the city of Sebring. Yep.
vote early and often.
But you can support the candidate of your choice. Okay, consent agenda. Need a motion?
Make a motion, we accept the consent agenda as proposed.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any comments from council members or questions on any items in the consent agenda? No. Any comments or questions from anybody in the public? Okay, Kathy, call for a vote, please.
Bishop,
Yes.
Carlisle,
Yes.
Detman,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Lawrence.
Yes. Okay. All right, we have, yes, sir.
Before we leave the announcements, in our consent agenda, we approve for the use of the circle by the First United Methodist Church of Sebring on March 11th from 5 to 9 p.m. for prayer and worship service. So it is an open worship service on the 11th of March. So everybody's invited to that also. So,
Great.
excuse me.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. Okay, we have no old business, so I'm going to go on to new business. We'll go to 10A, proposed amendment to the development agreement and letter of support regarding workforce housing for the Los Villas development. Mr. Mingle-Green or representative will appear before council to request two actions. So is Mr. Mingle-Green here or representative? And I apologize for, I'm probably torturing your name.
That's okay. It's Walls.
Okay.
Torture that too,
My name is Doug Walls, for the record. Roy Green was not able to make it this evening. We're simply requesting that the workforce housing language be removed from our HOA documents, I believe,
Okay. Any questions?
in the
or-
development agreement, sorry. Yes.
Any questions or comments from council members? No, sir?
I added to your packets there something labeled 10A, and Ms. Nash actually brought it to the attention, and I believe that Roy,
Doug,
or not, well,
I'm not sure what he sent up.
yes, what Scott sent it, or Ms. Nash sent it, and Roy agreed to the proposed wording.
Yes.
So it's there before you to be replaced with what's in the agenda packet. Do you want to add to that?
He said fine. They had requested some language change to the development agreement that they have with the city. They had proposed some language. We had gone back to them with an alternative language. That's what's on the sheet that you have in front of you that was added last minute. This is the language. They agreed to it late this afternoon, so everyone's on board with this language, if that's council's pleasure.
Okay. Would you like to read that for the record?
Of course. It would be an amendment to the development agreement in Section 8. Section 8 would read now as follows. Developer will record restrictive covenants in the public records of Highlands County, Florida, requiring the units to be properly maintained and providing for common area maintenance by a homeowners association. The restrictive covenants shall be approved by city prior to being recorded.
Okay. All right, any further comments or questions? Any comments or questions from the public? Okay, entertain a motion.
Make a motion, we accept 10A, adding the new language.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion and a second. Any further comments or questions from council members? Any comments or questions from the audience? No. All right, Kathy, would you call for a roll call, please?
Bishop,
Yes.
Carlisle,
Yes.
Detman.
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Lawrence.
Yes. Okay, motion is passed.
Thank you,
Okay,
council.
Mr.
Appreciate it.
Walls. Okay, 10B, North Franklin Street, Lakeview Drive drainage, Old Bank parking lot, Mr. Fields.
Good evening. I'm here to ask you guys to consider
letting us finish the drainage project on North Franklin Lakeview Drive. It'll be the subsurface drain portion. And we have two options. We talked about, in fact, we have a design for going underneath the parking lot that's going to be redone anyway. We have another option to go into the field, and then we have the option of doing nothing at this time. So I'm asking council to consider putting that drain in, and let's handle some of that water before it gets down to behind the Civic Center there.
Okay, just a little bit of a recap for the public and anybody that might not know. We did do a drainage project on the south side of that, which with two conveyances that go into a open ditch, for lack of a better way of putting it, that does get some of that water, mitigates some of that water coming in there. Then as you come further on down Franklin, this is where that's going to pick up.
Yeah.
Any
It should-
overflow from that area. So that's kind of an overview.
My only question is, will it have any impact if we do something with the waterfront?
It should.
Well,
It
but
should.
should it be done before any
It should.
improvements in the waterfront?
Absolutely, because right now that's overwhelmed as it is. What's down there is not enough to handle the water that comes to it.
Okay.
It should hopefully also eliminate some of the flooding on Lakeview Drive and West Center that gathers there. So, yeah,
Okay.
it should improve quite a bit.
So prior to anything done at the waterfront, this won't be a problem?
No, I believe this
Okay.
will help things.
Sweet, thank you.
Plus, if we redo that if we do this under the parking lot, and we decide to reconfigure that parking lot, that will not interfere with
No.
this structure at all.
No.
So one more question. What is your recommendation? Option 1 or 2?
Option 1.
Beneath the parking lot.
For a number of reasons. Number one, there's a Duke energy conflict that could end up costing us a little bit more money to do that. Plus, I mean, we've put irrigation and sod in that area, and sure would hate to rip all that back up.
Absolutely.
So that would be my suggestion.
Okay, thank you.
Got a motion?
Anything else? No? Any
Right.
comments or questions from the public? Come on up and state who you are and whatever questions you might have. Or comments.
Tom Mendel, I'm just wondering what's the estimated cost for the options and how will it be paid for?
Yeah, the estimated cost is option 1 is $85,461. Estimated cost for option 2 is $89,994. And how do we plan on paying for it, Ken?
It is budgeted every year in infrastructure funds, so the money is pre-budgeted for instances like this.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think we've had a problem with the drainage on Franklin for quite some time, and it all ends up going down and flooding down towards the lake. So this is just one of those little things that we can do to help mitigate part of that. So, and I also wanted to say that I like option number 1 too. It's under the parking lot. Parking lot gets paved again. We still have that big green grassy field there, and don't have to tear it up. So, but yeah. Anybody want to make a motion?
I make a motion that we accept option 1 on this proposal.
Okay.
I'll second that.
A motion and a second. Any further comments or questions?
A brief comment, it's long overdue. I think it's money well spent, and just for Mr. Mendel to understand that there's a proposal here, it's a line item proposal that adds up to the total under option 1, item by item, so it's very well spelled out here. And we thank you for your interest as well.
Okay. Any other additional comments or questions from the public? Okay. Kathy, would you call for a vote, please?
Bishop,
Yes.
Carlisle,
Yes.
Detman.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
Lawrence.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Ken. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, until now.
Other support.
What happened to D? We didn't pull D, did we?
Okay. Do you need to?
Oh, okay. Yes, pull D. I just wondered if they're talking.
Okay.
Because saw Dave.
All right, our city attorney representative has asked me to reopen 10A. She missed one of the lines on there as far as reading it, so I'm going to give her the opportunity to do that, and then I think we have to go back and
Just say in,
redo that.
10A, there were two items that have been requested. The first was modification of a Section 8 to the development agreement. The second request was for a letter of support revoking the restrictive covenant for workforce housing, which was in a agreement as attachment C, specifically Section 2 to the agenda item. Basically, it's a letter of support when they go before the Highlands County Board of County Commissioners requesting removal of the restrictive covenant. The motion that was presented earlier was only for the first option, did not include the second option.
Oh, I thought y'all approved it as presented, but that's okay.
That's what I thought.
When they approved as presented, they were approving both of those items listed unless you want them to do it differently.
I mean, I just thought Mr. Carlisle, when the motion was made it only for to change the.
No, I said adding the new ordinance.
Okay.
Accepting it as proposed, adding the new.
As
That's
proposed
what I
plus.
had, but.
Then that's fine.
That's
Is that
okay?
We're
Yes,
good?
Okay.
Is that okay?
Alrighty.
Okay. Okay, we're going to move on to 10C, Waterfront Budget Approval. Mr. David Lydell.
Good evening.
Good evening, David.
David Lydell, Chair of the Sebring CRA. Tonight, I would like to discuss the waterfront project budget and the process that we are proposing. As you may recall, at the last council meeting, you approved the design and reserved your budget approval based on more details about the project. Mrs. Vasquez and I have been working with Kimley Horn to develop a plan that will meet the needs of the community, preserve the integrity of the proposal, or the proposed design, and be completed at a cost that council believes to be reasonable. This past Friday afternoon, we discussed the proposed numbers with Kimley Horn, and after taking their numbers for the entire plan, we broke it out into a multi-phase project. The first phase would allow for the necessary demolition of the site, the infrastructure and underground work, and the construction of the grassy area, playground, restrooms, beach, and other required amenities. The second phase would be items that are not required for an enhanced and beautiful park. To be clear, we are not seeking to issue a bond or for the city to commit any funding to the project. The CRA does not have any taxing authority, so we are not raising anyone's taxes. The estimated total cost of the project is not $20 million or more. We intend to use the CRA's commercial loan that we have already sought, grant funding, and budget surplus to pay for the Phase 1 and additional phases and projects. Our Phase 1 costs are $6,340,125. These are based on Kimley Horn's numbers and have not been massaged or manipulated. I've had some councilmen say that they feel Kimley Horn's costs are too high. If that is the case, then the projected numbers will be lower. Their costs are estimates based on other projects that they are doing, but do not represent a commitment from us. For example, the $500,000 tree estimate is not a cost that we are obligated to commit to. We plan to leave as many trees as possible. If we need to bring in more trees, we can do that in steps. We can get bids, and we will stay in control of the cost. For the record, the trees are a Phase 2 cost, and I only use that as an example. Kimley Horn has also estimated that their soft costs are at 20% and hard costs are at 30%. Like many of you, I feel that some of these costs are on the high side. Mr. Mendel's letter outlined where he felt they should be, which again would lower the overall costs. I would like to reiterate that we are not making a commitment to any line item costs, but rather setting a budget so that we can develop plans and engineer the project. We will bid all the costs and services, and it is our intention to control the cost. As a professional fiduciary, I can assure you that we will be very mindful of our investment into this project. The rendering that was presented with all of the amenities that was proposed was developed by collecting input from the public meetings, emails, letters, and social media comments. Once that information was collected, Kimley Horn produced the results of those comments and input that they received into a visual format. Our plan to develop the waterfront is what the public has asked for, and I thank you for approving the design. Our future phases will be completed based on grants and budget surplus. We will continue to improve the property with council approval over time. But the main part of the waterfront will be completed in Phase 1. I'm very aware of the fact that there are 2 buildings that will not occupy the site. We have started conversations with the Art League, and so far they are willing to discuss the use of the Cloverly House. I've heard that the city may consider the Women's Club as a potential new civic center. The CRA would like to encourage and support both of these endeavors. Should the need arise, or if there was support in the future to develop a cultural arts center in the old Barnett Bank building, the CRA would like to be included in that discussion. In summary, on behalf of the CRA, we would like to request that council approve our proposed budget and scope of work in the Phase 1 plan with the understanding that we will be incurring design, permitting, and engineering costs. We would like the assurance that once the design, planning, and permitting is completed, that we will be able to begin construction. In order to expedite what we can, we would like to begin completing work that does not require permitting as soon as possible. As I said last year when we began the planning process, I did not want to spend money on a plan that would be placed on a shelf and never completed. We developed a plan, compromised where we could, and tried to be as flexible to the needs of everyone. You have approved the design, and once you approve the budget, we will be able to begin construction of one of Sebring's greatest assets on the spot where George Sebring himself found to be so beautiful. Thank you.
Well, thank you, David. I think that was a very good summary of what's going on and where you want to go from here. So I want to thank you, and I want to thank the CRA for the hard work that they've done on this. And just to reiterate a little bit, there was a lot and has been a lot and will continue to be public input on this. So this is not done just from the CRA or just from the City Council. This has been a community effort and will continue to be, and hopefully it will continue to be a community asset as well. So with that being said, I want to ask for council members' thoughts, questions, or comments. And I'm going to start with Mr. Detman this time.
Okay, thank you. I had a conversation with David on the phone today and went through some of the numbers with him as well. And I have said before, beating the same drum, that I've always been concerned about the loss of our civic center, and maybe not necessarily where it sits right now, even though I still think it could be included into the plan in a very tasteful way. However, when we talk about the Women's Club as a I guess you call it a potential civic center, I like to call that a temporary civic center, because I don't think that has nearly the square footage that the city of our size and as we're growing will suffice in probably 3 to 5 years. So considering that, as long as the CRA is open to the possibility of helping the city, since our civic center is going away, to help us do whatever renovations are needed, at least for our temporary civic center down at the Women's Club. And that would be somewhere in the neighborhood of about $100,000 just to get started.
What? I'm
That's
sorry.
my comment.
How much?
About $100,000 just to get started.
Okay.
Yep, new bathrooms, they have to be, they're not. what do you
The
call
air
it?
conditioners.
The air conditioners, yeah, there's quite a bit there to do.
Kitchen.
It may not look aesthetically as pleasing as we would like it to be right off the bat, but functionality wise, with the new handicap bathrooms and things like that, it's gonna be pushing 100, there's no question about that. And that's gonna be important, because I think that's another, you can call it a venture if you want to, but part of their responsibility to help us along with that, since we're being displaced and we don't have anywhere to go. That's the way I feel
Mr.
about
Lydell, can you address that at all?
Yep.
The CRA would be supportive of doing what they could with the city. As you may know, the Women's Club is outside of the CRA district. So there would have to be some conversations about how we
that
would
happens.
Probably the legality of you
Correct.
being
Yeah.
part of that.
Right.
Yes.
So that's, yeah.
So, but we understand that we would need to be financially supportive of the city
Sure.
somehow.
Hold a fundraiser. Do what you gotta do. Do what you gotta do. I just don't think that
Yeah.
the citizens should bear that full responsibility, since our civic center is gonna be going away.
Yep. Okay. Mr. Bishop?
No, I think you did a great job summarizing this for us. I did want to bring up, or I have a question for you. Of the projected cost of 6.34, any idea of what we may be able to get grants on, or you might be able to get grants on to kind of help absorb some of this?
We're not sure yet. We know that we've gone and explored some of the grants that are out there. There are grants for the underground work, the reclaimed water, the treatment of it back into the lake. There are playgrounds, splash pads. Those have grants that are eligible as well. There are other grants that we've seen that are kind of in line with the pier, not necessarily bringing the pier into the project, but the floating boat slips and stuff that we're talked about. There are grants for that. There are some offset grants to help with the planning and development portion. So I don't know what the number and percentage is, but in the very little bit of research we've done, we've uncovered a lot.
No, I'm good. I don't have any real conflicts. You've put in a lot of work here, and I really want to see this thing happen. I'm all good with it.
Okay. Mr. Carlisle?
You skipped me.
Skip me?
Oh, well, I went from way over there.
Oh, that's
Would
okay.
you
Go to him.
If you would like to defer to Mr. Stewart?
I'm
then-
deferring to Mr. Stewart.
Okay.
Right now.
So I'm very pleased with the budget. I think it's reasonable, and it's my understanding that it's not going to deplete your resources, and you'll still have ample funds to continue doing other projects throughout the community, which is wonderful. I love the fact that you're phasing it in. I also love the fact that it's not gospel. As the project goes along, there may be some changes, and we had talked about at one time in one of our meetings, the location of the bathroom, and maybe we can do something there in lieu of spending that chunk of money. So I think you're being quite reasonable. The CRA has done a great job, and as far as the Women's Club is concerned, I am a proponent of that to be used. It is 4,884 square feet as opposed to 7,284 for the current club. The amount of people that can sit, the seating in the current is 254, and I think the Women's Club is about 150, which is still a lot of people, and it has ample parking. And that building, if you've been inside, is beautiful. It's got exposed laminated beams. It makes this one look bad. It's so nice at the Women's Club.
It's a nice old building.
Yeah. So I do think that's viable, and I appreciate the fact that you guys are encouraged to help if that's how it comes about. And I'm on board.
Thank you.
Mr. Carlisle?
Couple of things. Is the splash pad included in this?
Not in the first phase. If we can afford it, we will, but it was listed as about a $600,000 item, and that just didn't make it into this round of the budget. If we can find a way to pay for it or something, yes. I mean, it's one of the top items that we want to see done.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I see the playground is. The pier, what are you going to do with the pier?
The pier right now is listed as an alternate. The projected cost on that was $3.4 million. You could phase that. If it needs repair work and stuff, I mean, there are grants that are available, but the overall consensus seemed to be that the majority of the folks we heard from liked the pier, and you didn't need to do a whole lot of drastic changes, and that's an expensive project.
Okay. And I agree with everybody. David, you've done a great job of spelling this out, and I think most people were wanting to see phases instead of jumping right on this. And I do want to say thank you for acknowledging this. This is not tax dollars. You know, this is not going to raise taxes. A lot of people was concerned about that. So I think you've done a great job. I'm not against the project. I just, if we started, I'd like to see it finished. You know, and that's another concern. I've heard people say, what happens if it bombs? Well, the only way it's going to bomb is if we walk away from it.
That's right.
So I think you've done a great job, and thank you for breaking this out. And I agree, I think some of the prices are a little high, but you'll never know the cost until it goes to bid. So, thanks.
I'd like to just add a couple of things, and I agree also, I think some of these estimates came in very high. I think you can do much better on some of these by bidding them out.
Yes.
If not individually, collectively, in groups. Again, using the trees as an example, you could build a forest for $500,000. That's not what we want down there. But I also want to point out something else too that's going to come up later on the west side of the lake, and that is stormwater mitigation and treating the stormwater before it goes to the lake. And this isn't just the park. This also is going to help treat the water that goes into the lake before it gets into the lake. So that's a big part of infrastructure. The Lake Jackson is just one of our jewels. It really is. If that lake were to start getting algae blooms or something like that, it could just be a miserable place around here. You've seen Sarasota, you've seen some of the other algae blooms in the coast. We have a confined body of water. It's not like the ocean. So we don't want anything bad to happen to our lake. And this will help that by treating some of the water. And there's a lot of water that comes from the east side of that lake into the lake. And this will help treat a lot of it. We've already discussed drainage down there on Franklin Street that goes into the lake, and there's a lot of that. So we want to try to treat that to the best that we can. You can't treat it 100%, but this will take some steps in doing that as you mitigate that stormwater coming through this park area. So that's an extra benefit to this. It's not just the park area. That's an extra benefit. So I just wanted to point that out a little bit. I think this is something reasonable. If we can get the grants that we hope we get, this number will move down from that 6 million to hopefully 4 or 5 million, which will give us more for phase 2, phase 3, and any possible changes we make down the way. So thanks for phasing this, and thanks for listening to the people that have come up with different ideas and thoughts in regards to this. I'm also a supporter of the Women's Club. I didn't know what we were going to do with that when it was bought, but now it looks like it's falling into place a little bit. And even, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and even if the city ends up paying to renovate that, that would be a small contribution in regards to the entire process. But if we can get the CRA to help with that, that would be good too. So, all that being said, I want to.
One other thing, what we just voted on for Ken Fields, that also is gonna treat the water. There's a treatment within there, yeah.
Yes, it
So,
will.
that water will not be going into the lake.
Directly, correct.
Right.
Yep. Mr. Mayor, would you like to add anything?
I'm sorry I missed last meeting, so I heard it was a eventful meeting, but I do, and I think you did listen to a lot of people, David. You're pretty much a go-getter on this thing and bulldozing ahead, and I think you backed up a little bit and said, okay, let's figure this out and how we can get it done. I think it's a great concept that builds on something that was here 30 years ago, that was already kind of in the plans, that was never acted on. It's been reinvented, and the phasing to me is also, I think, a proper way to do this. And this will also give you time, I think, to do it properly to where we're going to be able to have the engineering done, the design done, and you're going to be able to figure out the cost before you start spending the money, which is, to me, the most important thing. If we get our engineering, which I think soft costs, that's probably most of what that is. If it's $800,000 in engineering, we need to find another engineering firm to engineer it. But not anything against Kimley Horn, and I'm not saying that's what it is, but I think this is all kind of guesstimate where we go. So once we get the engineering done and your design done, then you can go out for the major pieces to see what's going to happen. If at that time, if we find out that it becomes a $12 to $20 million project, I think we really need to revisit it.
Sure.
Before any hard cost money, and really to get grants, you've got to have a project on the shelf. You cannot go in front of them and say, here's our budget, we think this is what it is. They want to know pretty much what it is. I've been involved in a lot of recreation grants and other types of grants, and you have to have an engineered project on the shelf, or they won't even consider it. And there are some funding out there for this kind of project. The treating of the water, I think, is very important. before it gets down, even down the hill. They've got these vaults that we talked about now that are gonna take a lot of the nutrients out of the water. Those types of projects are really high on the state's list, especially for the type of lakes that we have and preserving it. It's not only the city of Sebring's concern, but it's the state's concern. So I think there's a big opportunity to really take advantage and help the city out in treating that water before it gets to the lake. So I think and this is a much better way. I think we're phasing it. We're gonna, you may spend $350,000 on design, engineering, and we may back up and say, we gotta figure out what else we're gonna do because it's just out of our world. But I think we need to get to this next step, to get to this, and then hopefully into phase 2 and phase 3, so, but you did a good job with it, so.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna ask for public comments or questions, and I would like to ask you to limit your questions, comments to Mr. Lydell. If you just have comments, if they're redundant from other people, then just raise your hand when they're up here saying it or whatever, but I'd like to limit that to 3 minutes per speaker, and come on up and tell us what you think with the new proposed budget here. So, anybody want to come up and talk? Just please tell us who you are and what you think.
I'm James Dean of Sebring. I'm wearing this blazer I bought 50 years ago to remind that if something's old, whether it's a car, a blazer, building, you don't destroy it. You find the right tailor and use it for another 50 years. We're here tonight so CRA can discuss and seek approval for financing the Waterfront Development Plan number 3, shown December 14th by CRA and Kimley Horn. They never named this plan, but the correct name is Mistake on the Lake, Plan number 3. Kimberly Horn is not to blame. They did the job they were hired to do, but CRA's mistake was hiring the wrong consultant for the city of Sebring. Kimley Horn designed part of Riverwalk in Tampa and Fort Lauderdale. The plan is a clone of Fort Lauderdale. The historic buildings CRA would destroy or modify are the keystone of Sebring's heritage tourism. If the architectural heritage of Sebring is the magnet is drawing new residents and tourists. The plan for Mistake on the Lake number 3 should be put on the shelf. CRA needs to hire the historical consultant that has expertise in historic areas they should have hired a year ago. The action of City Council tonight should be to put on hold or continue the Mistake on the Lake decision until a future date, after the correct consultant has been hired by CRA and submitted their report. A precedent exists. Stephen Olafson, who wrote Sebring City on the Circle, works with a cultural resource management firm in Rhode Island. He should be consulted, and I have his information here. The most visible example in Sebring is the 1924 Amtrak station. Amtrak was ordered by Congress to update the old station to become ADA compliant to allow use by those with physical weakness or impairment. Sebring train station, like Weigel, Clovelly, and also Santa Rosa, is a historical monument. The State Historic Preservation Officer ordered the contractor on the Sebring train station to maintain the historical qualities and required a historian to review and write a proposal. Amtrak and the contractor hired Christian A. Hedrick, Ph.D., consulting architectural historian. He had an architectural background before his PhD, so worked as a liaison between contractors and the State Preservation Department. Sebring City Council needs to put the Mistake on the Lake plan on the shelf, not discuss spending any money tonight on that plan, and direct CRA to hire an historical consultant to submit plans suitable for Sebring, not South Florida. I have made the suggestions. Either or both have worked with Sebring and could create a plan or work together to create a plan suitable for Sebring's waterfront development as well as downtown historic Sebring. Right now, the Main Street Tourism and Historic Revitalization Act has been passed by a Senate Finance Committee and should soon become law, HB 247, which will provide a 20% tax credit for eligible historic properties being restored and a 30% credit on Florida Main Street designated areas. Obviously, mistake on the lake, Plan number 3 does not qualify.
Mr. Dean, could you sum it up? You're going over time a little bit here, please.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir, come on up and tell us who you are and what you'd like to say.
Tom Mendel. I like the idea with the phases. I think that's a good approach. What I'd like to know is under phase 1, what is being demolished and how many acres is being demolished? Are you demolishing the whole site just clear, or are you going to do it in phases, demolish in phases, and how many acres will be involved in phase 1? What's involved in the future phases, phase 2 and phase 3, and what the approximate cost of those phases are, and what the schedule is for phase 1, as well as your schedule for phase 2 and phase 3.
Mr. Liddell?
We don't have all of the answers for that, but I will tell you the demolition would include the Civic Center, the Magnolia House, and the asphalt up to the back of the library. And the design that was approved, that's what it would incorporate. It would incorporate the entire area. We would want to make sure we laid the infrastructure for the entire property so that when we added things in the future, like say the splash pad, the plumbing is already there and it's ready to go. So the timeline, I couldn't even begin to guess. I'm not in that industry, and we will work with Kimley Horn to get those timelines and stuff. We'll keep council obviously informed on the steps as we go forward, but we are planning to work on the entire site down there at the waterfront.
Okay, do you have any idea, you're going to get the engineering done first and then do the demolition? Would that be the thought, or would you like to start the demolition immediately as the engineer is going simultaneously?
I'd like to find out how long it's going to take for the engineering and permitting process to go and for the demolition to be complementary, working side by side simultaneously.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
And that's why in my request, the non-permitting work to be allowed to move forward as we can.
Okay, very good. All right, any other comments from the public?
Hello, my name is Terry Mendel, and I am for some improvement at the waterfront, but I'm also for using a real common sense approach. And I do have some questions for Mr. Liddell. You were saying that the parking would be taken all the way up to the back of the library. It's like, where is the little theater parking going to be? How are the Historical Society people going to be able to get to our archives? I have that question. That's pretty alarming. Also, it seems to me it would be prudent to work around the Civic Center until we can get some of these other things straightened around and get a real viable plan in place for a replacement or renovation. I personally don't like the Women's Club idea just because it's so far removed from Sebring, from the downtown area. Now, that's just my opinion. But another thing, I heard the mention of trees, and I certainly hope in hellaciously hot summertime Sebring, we aren't going to lose the beautiful oak trees that keep us cool and give us some respite from the sun. So those two things, the parking, that's a real concern. The Civic Center, of course, I know you have that already on the demolition block, but the parking, and then what was your plan for the tree situation?
David?
So as we said, we intend to keep as many of the trees as possible. That's the savings of a cost. Any trees that do have to be removed for whatever reason, whether they're not in the right place, they're sick or something, I don't know. We would have to have a budget to replace them, but we don't want to go into this thinking we're spending $500,000 on trees. The plan was approved already, and the plan that was approved is what we're working towards, and that included removing the parking behind the library and creating that pavilion area up at the top, and the parking lot across the front from the library to the end of the last historic house. That parking lot would remain, and then we're working to also on the parking lot that would be on the other side in front of the theater. We've had conversations with them and are still trying to put in that driveway drop-off that's down there. That's part of the plan that we would incorporate as well. So we won't be redoing the parking lot across the street at the bank unless that is deemed to be necessary, but we still have ample parking over there for overflow from the waterfront.
Okay, thank you. Any other thoughts or comments, please?
Yeah, one comment here,
Yes, sir.
David. Can you ensure that the Historical Society can get to their archives during the construction phase regardless, whether it be 1, 2, or 3?
While it's under construction, I can't make that promise. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that they're going to chain link fence a lot of that off. You may have to go around. I don't know what the configuration, but that area between the Historic Society's house and the archives will have to be, there will be demo work that's done there. And so I don't know that you can walk through a site while it's being demolished.
Well, I think we can probably, whoever is doing that work, can
Right.
probably make sure there's access. That
Well,
doesn't mean public access.
We just have to tell the contractor
No.
that we have to access all the doors to that
Absolutely.
building.
Absolutely.
Access to the
That's what I'm
doors, oh
asking.
yeah.
And he will make a way.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah.
They're not gonna hand carry some of those items they need up to the, up to one of the houses, so.
But they would have access, as would the library, to it during construction.
Yeah.
But to say that it wouldn't, there might not be some inconvenience from time to time, I wouldn't be truthful if I didn't say that.
Naturally.
Anytime you remodel or do anything like that, it's inconvenient.
Yep.
It's just part of building and remodeling, so we can deal with it for the end result.
And we do have the Yellow House that will be open to the public and will have access for the Historical Society. So,
No, I'm just talking to, as far as them getting to their archives, they have to be able to get those things.
Sure.
Replace them, do the new.
Right.
Yeah.
okay.
Yes.
Any other comments from the public, please?
I'm George Hensley, and I have a couple of questions I want to clarify in my mind. So, hearing about the parking issue, that also would take away the parking that's available for the existing Civic Center until it's replaced. And my visual about that's a little off, or I understand it's going to still be parking up near the street, but the parking down by the Civic Center now will be taken away in the very initial steps of doing the work. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that is
Okay.
correct.
Yeah, okay. I want to be sure that we've had a lot of talk about the Civic Center and a replacement of Civic Center. I grew up in a very small town in North Carolina, and probably currently maybe 3,000 population people, right, even now. But they put together a very nice Civic Center facility in what used to be an old garage there. The point I'm trying to make is it's a vital need for the community to have a place where the meetings can be held, weddings can be held, things of that nature. And I realize there may not be a lot of utilization, but I feel very strongly, and I'm hearing from the council that most of you, I believe, are in favor of having a Civic Center facility. Even sounds like it's going to be like 60% of the size of the current Civic Center. But I want to say to you that I think it's important that you then have the replacement in place before the bulldozer arrives at the current one. Otherwise, we're going to have maybe 2 years of time where there will be no Civic Center available to the citizens at all. And I don't know, it's a lot sometimes, just like I'm feeling a little bit about the electric car world. You take away the gasoline before you provide all the electric vehicle connections that are going to be needed to be replaced. A little bit like that. Sometimes we move people before we take away military material that should have been taken away before. A few thoughts of some governmental agencies have made relating to the fact that they haven't planned too well before things get torn down. So I'd like to say that. I know that the project is going to be done. I don't know the phasing. I hear the phasing. I don't know if we're talking about 10 years, 3 years, 8 years, 20 years, and you probably don't know that yet, right? You do not know that. So, but you must have some idea, I would think, about phase one. You would you not? What is that period of time, by the way?
Once we receive approval tonight, we will get started immediately with Kimley Horn to go through the design phase and begin the permitting process and all the rest of that. I would expect that that construction would start and hopefully be completed within, I'll say 2 years, but I would like to see it done faster. Depending upon costs and what we're incurring will determine how those following phases are done. And as quickly as we can do them, I will want to do them.
Okay, okay, all right. By the way, just a little bit of an aside, but I think that it relates to this. For some of us that have elderly ears, it would be helpful, at least for me, and I think maybe others, I don't know if everybody could hear really, really good, but if the council members would speak a little closer to the mics, it would certainly be helpful. I miss a lot of things. I don't know if everybody else can hear well back there, but when your ears are kind of ancient, they don't hear as well. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hensley. I want to make a little comment in that regard too, and yes, sir, come on up. But I just want to say that I think a renovation of the old women's club can be done in a relatively short period of time. And Mr. Stewart is a specialist in that area and might be able to give us some time frame, but I think in some regards it can be done.
Coincidentally enough, I spoke to Scott this week about it, and I asked him to determine the needs to open the building back up. There's two big problems, and that is the air conditioning and the bathroom situation. Prior to it being shut down, it was in use, so it hasn't been long, and there were people in there using it. So it's happening right now, is my point.
Yep. So.
Doesn't the kitchen need to be
Well, I don't think
revamped?
I'm not sure, but we don't need a commercial kitchen. We really don't want a commercial kitchen.
Right.
We prefer to have a kitchen that people can use and cook their food elsewhere and bring it there,
heat
which
it.
is what the current Civic Center has.
Right.
So that's not hard to accomplish, and it's fairly inexpensive without a hood system and those kinds of things.
So would I be an estimate, a guesstimate, 3 to 6 months, maybe it could be online?
Well, it depends how much money the CRA gives us. But I would say that if we had the resources that we could do it, we could be in there in a matter of months.
Sure. Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you. Mr. Lee.
Bobby Lee here. I really hadn't intended to come up here until I heard everybody talking about no parking for Jim Pollard. I don't really think that's what was intended. I mean, I saw the plans, but I heard the discussions, and it seemed like there was going to be latitude for parking for the elderly who go to the theater and the elderly who go to the archives. Because we have a lot of old timers, one of your favorite words, that go into the archives almost every day now. We're getting sometimes 10, 15 people just in the archives, and we've had up to 60 people in one day already at the Yellow House. We're frequently getting 10 and 20. That's okay, but parking down there for those folks that park in the handicap areas are kind of critical. So if we're just going to have a mall to walk on, why can't we have that section to drive on? Surely the plan can be modified. We're not stuck with the plan you approved the way it is, right? Because it's going to change. We all know it'll change. So if it isn't changed to include parking for folks going to the archives, to the library, and to the theater, there's going to be really quite a few issues for those folks that just can't use it anymore.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments from the public?
May I ask David Liddell a 1-minute question?
Yes, sir. Keep it.
Removing the Civic Center to build a volleyball court makes no economic sense
Is this a
whatsoever.
question?
The classic formula used by developers is a pink hotel, a boutique, and a swinging hot spot. The outfitter fills the formula for the boutique and the swinging hot spot. Is plan number 5 or 4, however you number them, going to include a hotel or a condominium where the volleyball court is right now?
No.
Then why is the Civic Center being torn down to build a volleyball court? I thought the original purpose was to achieve the highest economic potential of the waterfront, correct?
Highest and best use.
I'm sorry?
Highest and best use.
And that is a volleyball court?
That's what the public said.
This is the public. Does anyone feel that a
Okay,
volleyball court is?
Mr. Dean.
Yes.
Mr. Dean, you asked your specific question, and I believe he answered. I want to remind everybody, it is not just the people in this room tonight that has weighed in on this. We have had literally hundreds of people that have weighed in on this. Tonight, there is a representative of people here that have certain ideas and thoughts, but it is not everybody that's weighed in on this. There's over 10,000 people in this city, and there's about 100,000, a little over 100,000 in this community, meaning the county. A lot of those people have weighed in other areas and at other times. So, yes, sir.
Trevor Murphy, a Sebring City resident and business owner. I'd like to thank the council for y'all's hard work, your openness, and also the CRA throughout this process. I've followed it. I live downtown, originally from Avon Park, and I see our mall in Avon Park, and I see what the circle is in Sebring, and the work, for the younger generation here, being able to walk to the theater, being able to walk down to restaurants, et cetera, downtown. It's got a vibrant feel going to the farmers market. There's a lot of things that the city is doing, and I'm proud to say that I'm a Sebring resident, so thank you.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you, sir.
So, Mike Schmidt, I live by the lake, so I have a pretty good view of the water quality as it changes over the course of the year. And so I commend you for addressing the problem with the runoff. It's been a real problem. Last year, August 20th, we had 6.7 inches of rain in my rain gauge. And the water quality deteriorated noticeably after that. We had an algae bloom, and it took about till December or so to clear up. So first the algae bloomed, it was all green, and then they depleted the nutrients, and then they died off, and you got a black sludge in there. And it was, it smelled bad, and it was real nasty. Not even my dog wanted to go in the water anymore at that point. There's also the drainage pipe on Pine Street, that easement that comes down in the lake. And you wouldn't believe all the stuff I'm fishing out of the lake, from rubber gloves to
Could you speak in the microphone, please?
Rubber gloves and bags of fast food leftovers and all kinds of stuff. A lot of it, I think, comes from the Palms of Sebring. It looks like a lot of stuff they used comes in there. And it might help if you put a filter on there, like some kind of net that catches the debris that somebody comes by maybe once a month or so to cleans that stuff up. There was also about 9 months ago a bunch of foam coming down there. It hadn't rained in a month or so. It was in the spring. It was about a year ago. And it rained maybe an inch at that time. And there was a whole bunch of foam all the way into the lake. My neighbor actually took a video of that. If you're interested in seeing that, I can contact him and see if he still got that. I don't know where the foam came from, but it came out of that pipe. So it, in an effort to clean up the lake or to keep the bad runoff from going in there, that's well worth the money. And maybe you can do something about the situation on that pipe on Pine Street, because there's a lot of debris coming out of that pipe.
Okay, thank you. I do think that this may help. Exactly what you're talking about there, and that's part of the treatment that this is going to help. I'd like to say it's going to cure it 100%, probably not, but I think it should help some.
The pipe on Pine Street, I don't think it's part of the park.
Yeah, it probably isn't. I'll have to defer that to Mr. Ken Fields later on, and we'll see how that works. But okay, anyone else? Okay, let me come back to council and ask any further comments or questions after the public has spoken. Okay, in that case, I would like to entertain
Charlie,
a motion.
I
Yes,
just
sir.
want to say one other thing. In this proposal, there is nothing in this proposal that is tearing down a historic building.
That's right.
That's right.
That's correct.
They're not tearing the houses down. The Civic Center is not a historic building.
Right.
It wasn't there when I was a kid, but if we get the women's club up and running before they tear it down, then we're not without a civic center. I understand it's on the other side of the lake, and hopefully, like Mr. Detman says, this is a temporary
Correct.
civic center, so we can find a place
Permanent home.
closer, on this side. But sometimes we talk about when you're going through a process like this, a remodel, whether it's in your house or wherever, sometimes it's a little struggle to get through those remodels. I know Mr. Stewart remodeled a bathroom for me, and it took a while. So, not
He did a
his
good job, didn't he?
He done a great job, but it wasn't his. It
There's
wasn't
an advertisement there, Lenore.
No, let me finish. It wasn't his fault. It was.
Okay, stop now.
It was finding everything we needed to accomplish the job, and he done a great job. But it does set things a little off.
Yeah.
So, and we have to deal with that.
Okay. And I'll also add to that just a little, if we can get the women's club up and running over there, that's great. We also have, Bernie Little is building a big civic center up there that's gonna be somewhere in the neighborhood of twice the size of this one here and holding a lot more people. I saw on Facebook the other day where I think it was Ducks Unlimited is thinking about even taking their event because they have more people than our little civic center will handle. They did it here last weekend, but they're looking at a bigger place next time around, and they mentioned the Bernie Little facility in particular, which is at the north end of our city.
Right.
And also, I want to remind people that the Women's Club is in our city, and we have annexed a lot of the US 27 property, which makes that Women's Club, a little bit closer to the center of our city. The city as a whole, not just the old downtown.
Right.
So, and then that does not preclude us from doing a civic center over here, a bigger, nicer civic center at some point. Or maybe getting the county, which now has somewhere in the neighborhood of $5 million that they're gonna spend on a civic center. So there's a lot of options out there for that civic center.
Mr. President, one final thought here, comment. We failed to thank Mr. Mendel for his input. He's put quite a bit of work into these two documents, one day, February 18th and one the 21st. A lot of really good, thoughtful, and professional ideas in there. And I know that the CRA has taken note of several of them, so I just want to personally thank Mr. Mendel for his outstanding work in helping the city and volunteering to help us along the way, which is really great. That's what we need, partnerships like that.
Good. Thank you. Okay, I'd like to request a motion.
I'll make a motion, we approve the budget for the CRA's Waterfront redevelopment project as presented.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further comments from council members? One last availability for the public to make a comment.
What
Okay.
exactly is that budget? How much,
Sir?
how much money exactly is we talking about?
Well, it's
It's an
up to
approximate.
$6.3 million, but we're hoping to get grants and other offsetting factors to bring that number down, and that's phase one. All right, Kathy, if you would call the
Can I
roll.
ask a-
Oh, yes, sir.
Can I ask a clarifying question? The comment was as presented, and in my request, it was that the council approve the budget and the scope of work for the phase one, and that we would get the assurance that once the planning and permitting is completed, we would be able to begin construction. And in order to expedite that, we could begin completing work that does not require permitting as soon as necessary. Is that as presented?
I don't think any of that's necessary. We're approving what you presented, which is this phase one with the dollar figure on there. And how you do the planning and the permitting and the construction is up to you.
Okay.
Because we're approving it.
We would just ask to give us time to get the women's club.
Well,
I wouldn't want to make that personally contingent,
Yeah.
because that's on your schedule, and I think we will move faster.
yeah, I also think that there's gonna be a large degree of flexibility in what you're doing, and
Correct.
I'm certain that we'll be able to access the archives, and all those little
Absolutely.
details will be addressed as we're as you're doing construction.
Yes, that's correct.
So what you're asking is really what I'm doing.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Comments time is over. Kathy, would you call the vote, please?
Bishop,
Yes.
Carlisle,
Yes.
Detman.
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Lawrence.
Yes. Thank you very much, and thank you, Mr. Liddell, for all of your hard work on this. And take that back to the CRA and let them know we appreciate it as well.
And
Thank
figure
you.
out a way to come up with about $100,000 for us.
Would you like to discuss that under audience business or something?
We can always do that. I can
We
take
can.
my hat
And you know what? I'll give you some time at the end of this if you would like. Okay, let's move on to the next little thing here. Okay, we're going to go to 10D, engineering proposals for Florida Revolving Fund loans fiscal year 21-22. Mr. Bogus.
Yes, good evening. As I think most everybody remember, when we went through the budget process for this past budget year, this current budget year, there were three fairly large capital projects that I felt we needed to move on. Being that they were the size and funding, the best way we thought to fund them was through a state revolving fund loan, which is a very low interest loan way to handle that. The SRF process actually requires you to do a lot of engineering work to begin with. You have to have your bid specs ready. You also have to have a facilities plan ready before you can even start the loan application. So first step is to get our engineering secured. So I've contacted Poston Engineering. They have responded with 3 different proposals for one for each project. Probably should explain to council that the way the SRF loans work is you can combine projects, but they have to be like utility. In other words, they have to be water. If you don't, we have 2 water projects here. We have the Highway 98 line, and we also have the ground storage tank out at the Country Club. So those are 2 water projects. That would be one loan. The other loan would be sewer related, which is the interconnection project to interconnect the Country Club with our own treatment system, which would eliminate that system out at the Country Club. I've tried to provide y'all with some estimated cost of these projects, but the way materials are skyrocketing up, and the pipe is a derivative of petroleum products, it's very difficult. The numbers I have here is just the best guess, to be honest with you. But the Highway 98 line, just to give you a little background on that, this line was built back in 2008 as a redundant water supply system to the airport and the industrial park at the airport. Since that was built, we've actually used that line to provide water service to customers along that route. So the line is now servicing actual paying customers along the way, which adds complexity to the replacement. So when I got the proposal, I almost fell out of my chair. I wasn't expecting quite this amount. Had some conversations with Poston engineers, and they've convinced me that this is probably not a bad price after all. But anyway, it's approximately 4 miles in length, and we've estimated, or the estimated cost was a little over $3.3 million, whereas the original cost was $1 million. That was the low bid. But it has gone up that much to replace this line. And I hate to ask council to spend this kind of money on something we've already paid for once, but this line is no doubt is defective pipe. In fact, I used to have a bad habit of asking the guys periodically, how's the line holding up? And every time I mention it, it sprung a leak. So they let me know, hey, don't mention the pipe anymore. Just keep your mouth closed, and maybe we can get by a week without having to go out there and work on it. But we have spent a lot of time, effort, and expense to maintain the line, and I think it's time we probably bite the bullet and replace it. The other project, the Country Club, when we bought the system, the existing tank was made of metal, and I don't know if y'all have seen it. Roland, you've probably seen it most recently. But the tank is in such bad condition that we've taken it out of service. We're really afraid that if we stress it, which normally the amount of water you would need to keep in it, it could collapse and possibly not only damage property, but even might hurt someone as well. So the system has been down for several years now, and we've been providing water to the development through the tie-in line that we built right after Irma came through. That's a 12-inch line, and it's been serving everybody very well out there. I think everybody is pleased with the water service that the city provides to them out there through that line. But this water plant can't be operated without a new ground tank. So we'd like to go ahead and spend the money. We've estimated about $650,000 for a 200,000 gallon tank. Now that too may be on the low side now. But what that would do is allow the city to continue to utilize the permitted capacity that plant has been assigned to, and also utilize the 2 wells that are out there as well. Because we have 2 very good wells to use, and the permitted capacity. All those have a dollar value to them, to the city. So with a new ground tank, we can put that back on the line and use that plant to help supplement not only the development's use, but use for nearby areas to extend city services. The last project is the tie-in, the sewer line tie-in. The closest plant we have to that location is our western plant. Now, I think y'all probably might recall that that's the plant we probably need to replace next. And in our 5-year capital plan, I think we have that slated to try to replace, or at least get started on replacing it in year 4, I believe it is. So that will be our next probably costly item, is to replace that plant. We've just completed the purchase of the property right adjacent to it. It's approximately 5 acres of property. That property would be used to construct a new percolation pond to help increase the capacity of a new plant at that location. But as part of that, this system, the Dixon and Pugh system, the Highlands utility system that we acquired several years ago too, that was his plant. And he had an existing 6-inch force main running from Bronze Road in that area. And we've had some problems with that pipe too. Some of the routing that he chose probably was economical at the time, but when you go through bayheads and things like that, when you have problems with it, it's very difficult to find and to fix. So I got with Marvin at Polston and we said, can we use this opportunity, this loan, to borrow a little bit more and replace the entire line going out to the treatment plant with a little bit larger line to add more capacity. So this $1.5 million is not only to tie in the country club and to upgrade the lift station at the country club, but also pay for the line to be replaced all the way to the treatment plant. That is quite a distance. Don't really have a measurement here, but I'm sure it is probably several miles, 3 or 4 miles anyway.
That's the plan on Cougar, right?
Yes. Yes, it is.
That's me, Bob.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It sounded like it came from Yes, it is. So anyway, the grand total of the engineering cost is $359,000. Now, we do have money through different line items in the budget to fund that. And budget amendment number 58 pretty much lays out how where the funds are coming from to basically get the engineering done that we need to do before we can do anything.
So what are you asking for? The engineering money?
Yes, sir. At this time, I'd like to have you all approve Budget Amendment 58 and also accept the 3 proposals that we received from Poston Engineering.
I got a question in regards to this. I know you have infrastructure money every year in your budget.
Yes,
And I don't want to hold you to an exact number, but a ballpark figure of what you have for infrastructure replacement. Are we talking $3 to $5 million a year, or in general?
Charlie, we have a lot of, I'm not sure, we have money to replace equipment, pumps, that sort of thing.
Right.
We also have some money to rehab lift stations, manholes, that sort of thing. So if you lump it all together between water and sewer, I guess it could be that much.
Yeah. Yeah, could you speak in the microphone? I'm sorry. I couldn't
I'm
hear.
sorry.
Yeah.
Realize it. Yeah.
How
Yeah,
much?
it could be that much, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess one of my concerns with this is we're up to, with these different projects, about $5 million now.
Yes, sir.
I know we have a loan that's going to get paid off this next year, or in 23, I think. And so we're going to have some more infrastructure money, if you will. But I also I'm a little concerned with getting and borrowing a lot of money that we're just going to extend big loan payments to, too. Now, I know a lot of this stuff needs to get done, but I'm just wondering how far ahead of our budget we're getting with these loans.
Well, like I said, we don't really have any way of doing it right now without borrowing. And the interest, Charlie, is practically nothing right now.
Yeah,
So
and
it's
that's
not a lot
it's a
of
good time to
interest.
borrow money as far
Yes.
as that goes, and I understand that if we have to borrow that money. But I would like to see, and maybe not on these projects, but in the future, you know, having money on a regular basis, whether it's $1 million, $2 million, $3 million per year, to go in and do these projects that cost a lot of money like this, and spread them out over time so that we can keep up with it without borrowing the money and having to pay it back, and then, you know, tying one hand behind our back because we've got loans we got to pay back. We can't deal with today's stuff. So I don't know if that's feasible this time around, if you will, but I also do know that, you know, that this number has increased a lot, as you said.
Oh, yes,
So,
sir. So I'm not sure, are you saying we should wait longer on these projects? or-
I didn't really say that. I'm just trying to say I think we need to plan for the money we've got coming in for the projects that we need to do on a regular basis. So whether we have enough money on any given time, and yes, you do have to borrow some money for bigger projects. I understand that. But then, do we tie ourselves up for the next 5 years because now we've got to pay $1 million a year back for the next 5 years here, and we don't have current money for current upgrades. And then the other question I have in this regard is, you say that the line going out to the airport was replaced in 2008, defective pipe. Do we
Well,
have some guarantees on that this
well-
won't happen again?
Well, that's that was the question I had. And we could find no record of any kind of warranty. I even asked Excavation Point, Towering Cord with Excavation Point, I said, when you put a line in, what kind of warranty comes with this stuff? And he says, well, it's kind of one of those things you don't really think too much about. Typically, this line was HDPE pipe, which is pipe that you should not be having trouble with.
Right.
But for some reason, this is DR17, not DR11, which is, the 17 is a little thinner wall. Well, the reason why they use it is because the HDPE pipe is so thick, thick-wise, that you lose inside diameter. So the 17 allowed us a little larger inside diameter. But
Who was the contractor that put it in?
KDL.
Are they
Have
still
you
in
spoken to
business?
them about this?
Well, the thing is,
And I know that
well,
they've gone to almost
not
nothing.
any time recent.
Yeah.
They went out of business for a short, for a
Yeah, they're
time.
back.
They're back around now.
Yeah.
But yes, sir, I don't expect any.
I can appreciate Charlie's depression that he's
Yeah.
about this, and I have the same thing. The other thing that really bothers me is Country Club of Sebring.
Mhm.
We just bought that, the water system out there, and a couple of years ago, and I'm shocked about how much money we're putting into it that we hadn't anticipated. This is $2.1 million.
Mhm.
In addition to, none of those numbers were given to us, or we had no idea we were going to be doing that. Is that correct?
Well, I think we probably didn't anticipate the ground storage tank.
Yeah.
I don't think we realized it was in such bad condition.
Yeah.
The cemetery, I mean, not the cemetery, but the sewer system, we've always had, plans to interconnect that.
Right.
It's not a really good plant. It gets us by. We've not spent any money on it on purpose because we've always thought that we would interconnect and didn't want to invest much in it.
Right.
But we're starting to have a capacity problem or a capacity concern.
Well, they're building out there like
Yes,
crazy.
yes, they are. And we're going to be to a point where either we're going to have to spend money on the existing plant, which staff doesn't really want to do, or to interconnect.
So I'm just questioning if it was viable to purchase it at this point.
Well, you know.
I mean, I know there's no way to foretell the future.
Right.
You know, but I hope that our due diligence was the best it could have been. That's the part that bothers me. To have this magnitude, $2.1 million in costs that we didn't anticipate.
Right, and Mark, I understand your concern. We do make a decent amount of revenue out there in that development, and it's continuing to grow.
Right.
And it'll be built out probably another,
will be.
5-10 years perhaps.
So that's not a big concern with you?
No, sir. I think in the long term we'll be fine.
Okay.
To be honest with you, this interconnection for the sewer has been on the books for a long time now.
Yeah.
We've had some issues with trying to get from there to our plant.
Right.
Which has taken a lot more time than I ever thought it would. Now we do have a route that not only will get us there, but along the way we have great potential picking up customers along the way. More so
on
than
a long-term basis, if you add customers.
Yeah.
Because this will go by Gulf Hammock.
it will be. It'll go by Golf
go up
Hammock,
there
the Sebring
So
Hills area.
It has the potential of
It does, yes, sir.
doing really well for us.
Now, I didn't come prepared to try to give you estimated numbers on that.
I got you.
But
I think for future growth, but there's a lot of stuff planned out in the market.
Yeah. Okay, I feel better, thank you.
all right, sir. Thank you.
You mentioned replacing part of a line that goes under, like through Bayheads and stuff. Is that what?
Yes,
I was going to ask you, was that part of the line? Is that part of the line that I went with you and we had to wade to?
That is the very same line.
Okay,
Yes,
if
yes, it is.
This line is under pine trees and somebody cut it out in the middle of nowhere, and we waded knee deep in water to get to it.
Good.
To find the leak. So that line definitely needs to be out of that
I understand.
area.
So we're trying to fix several different issues this one time. Try to get it all.
Well, what's
correct.
our guarantee that this won't happen again on that line? If you just said it goes under pine trees.
Well,
No, they're moving.
We're getting it away from a lot of that area out there, Charlie. Now, I don't want to scare you on HDPE pipe. It's good pipe. Well, in fact, every project that, I don't sound too critical here, but all the other projects we've had, the other contractors that have put the same pipe in, no problem.
I got you. Okay.
That's good pipe. Charlie, where the leak was is somebody actually cut it.
Yeah.
They were trying to drain their property and
Right.
cut right through it.
Yeah, that can happen. I understand that.
Yeah, but it's what he's talking about is putting that line in an area that there is no trees.
That high and dry area. that's out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, I'm just extremely concerned that we're replacing this, 12 years after it was installed. That's
No,
just
this
crazy.
is a whole different line. He's talking about the sewer line.
The sewer line's what I was talking about just now. Now,
Not-
Highway
not the
98 line
98
is the
Yeah.
defective line, yes, sir.
Okay.
Is this, as far as the sewer line, I got two questions. The capacity is, how much future growth can you push through that?
Well, we're upsizing, it's currently a 6, we're gonna upsize it to an 8, so.
If you have another 400 or 500 homes out on 635 that can tie in, and then you start tying in Sebring Hills area,
Mhm.
is that gonna be able to handle most of that?
All engineering calculations say it will, because I was concerned, let's don't build it too small.
Right.
Now, the larger you build it, the more it's gonna cost.
Yeah.
But we were trying to, get that happy
You
medium.
don't wanna
where-
build it again.
We do not, no.
But how about, and then, it's too bad if it's going up Heron, right?
It's gonna go down Heron, yes, sir, and then make a
Too bad we
90.
couldn't have done that, well, they got it torn off.
Well, we tried that.
Yeah.
It didn't work out.
Just couldn't lay a piece of pipe in there and we'll fix it later or something. But and also the question of the water line at 98,
Mhm.
can we put we talked about this with the country club, when we put that water line in, is to put a sewer line in that. I mean, the hole's gonna be open and you have to keep them so many feet apart. I can't remember the whole conversation.
Right.
But it would be wise to maybe think to say, okay, let's plumb that now that the hole's open, so it's just gonna
Dig
cost
one
the pipe?
ditch,
Right.
yeah.
Would that be sensible or not?
We
I
could-
mean, it may not connect anywhere,
we
but
could-
we've got the whole stretch
Sure.
open.
And that's one of the reasons why this price is not probably gonna be more than it is, because we already have a good section of the pipe already installed to serve the country club. We put that in when we put the 12-inch line in.
Yeah.
Right.
As y'all may remember.
Yep.
So yes, that concept does work.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking 98, we may not connect anything on it, but in the future, it's gonna,
Yeah.
the way the county, I know the county wants to, they've been trying to lay out a utility plan for the whole county.
Yes.
And it's gonna rely on the municipalities, because we have, for a lot of it, and this may be a section that we could, put the pipe, I don't know what it costs to be to add a line, so. But you don't have to dig the hole again.
Right, right.
It's something just to think about when we do, a water line or a sewer line, can we put a water line in that may be inactive for a period of time, but when we need it, it's there.
Right, right. Well, we could certainly look at that, Mayor. It's obviously got merit to it, so.
You want a motion?
Any more questions? Comments? Anything from the public? Yes, I entertain a motion.
I make a motion, we accept proposal for Polson Engineering for the SRF capital project and approve budget amendment number 58 as presented.
Second that.
Have a motion and a second. Any further comments or questions from council members? Any comments or questions from the public? Kathy, would you call the vote, please?
Bishop.
Yes.
Carl.
Yes.
Detman.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
Lawrence.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
All right, thank
Thanks,
you,
sir.
Mr. Vargas. Business from the audience. Mr. George Hensley would like to talk to about the circle clock and the lamp post. If you'd come up, please, sir.
Yes, George Hensley. A couple of weeks ago, and first I want to say to the city, thank you very much for the very, very attractive work that you do on the circle. It is a really gem for our city. I drive around it regularly, as all of us do, and we just notice the flowers and the beautiful park that we have. I didn't look today, but a couple of weeks ago, I was out with my great-grandchildren in the park, and I noticed that our clock is only correct twice a day. And I also noticed that a lot of the lamp posts have a lot that are really in deteriorating shape. So if we're going to spend a lot of money at the waterfront, I also think we need to try to take care of our lamp posts and fix the clock so it looks right. I have my name on it because I and a lot of other people put some money in it, and I don't want to do that again. But in any event, we'd like very much to have the clock to work. So if you could look into that, I'm sure it's not going to be, it'll be something under $2 million, I would think. Thank you very much.
All right, we
Can you
will do
make sure
that.
Scott does that?
Penny, would you make note of that, please? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right.
CRA will make note of that, so.
Yes.
That wasn't their plan, wasn't it, Christie?
Sure
We
was.
do the lamp posts?
My
And
question.
spend $2 million on the clock.
Let's just call it a soft cost.
I wanted to know what 2 times is correct every day.
20 after 2, I saw the other day.
Oh, did that? Okay, well, very good. I was hoping it'd be 5 o'clock, so we could always say it's 5 o'clock on the city. All right, let's see, city attorney's business, Ms. Shannon Nash.
Thank you, sir. In front of you have Ordinance 1494. This is for the second and final reading. Your first reading was at your February 1st meeting. The proposed ordinance allows drop participants to vote for elected trustees. The ordinance, again, it's ordinance number 1494. The title is an ordinance of the City of Sebring, Florida, further amending the City of Sebring Municipal Firefighters Pension Plan, restated pursuant to ordinance number 1307 as subsequently amending section 3, Board of Trustees, providing for codification, providing for severability of provisions, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing for an effective date. Again, this is the second reading, final reading, and request is to have it approved.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. I request a motion.
I make a motion to approve ordinance 1494 on second, final reading as presented.
Second or third?
Have a
Paul's
motion.
down there, I had to jump on it.
Have a motion and a second. Any comments from the public? Any comments or questions from council members? Okay, Kathy, would you call for a vote, please?
Bishop.
Yes.
Carlisle.
Yes.
Detman.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
Lawrence.
Yes. Okay, ordinance has passed. Okay, we're moving on to city administrator's business. Miss Penny.
Good evening. Before you is an interlocal agreement between the City of Sebring and Highlands County concerning the recycling. I believe this was presented back in November, and the interlocal's been prepared for the placement of the recycling facility, and then the responsibilities between the city and the county. Mr. Diefendorf is here also if you have any other questions.
This is, you were actually gonna have somebody at these containers, right?
Yes, sir. Bob Diefendorf, for the record, from Highlands County Engineering Department. Yes, Waste Connections, our contractor, they'll be the ones that will be operating the site for us, and they'll be there a couple days during the week for a certain amount of hours. We haven't laid that out between all the locations yet.
That's when it will be open.
That's when it will be
Lock
open.
gates.
It'll have lock gates,
Good.
right?
That's
so
the only way.
We'll have fencing around it, you know.
Yeah.
That's
Sounds
the only
good.
way you can do it.
Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Make it so you can get in, but you can't get out.
You can get recycled.
Right. You can get in, but you can't get out.
Well,
That's the way it ought to
Okay,
be.
any further comments or questions? Any comments or questions from the public? I just think it's a good idea that we get back to some place to recycle. There are some people very conscious of it, and some
Absolutely.
people actually know how to do it right.
Yeah. 4 or
But there
5.
still needs to be some education in general to our public, so.
Well, with Waste Connections actually operating it, if there's any contamination, they're the ones that would be responsible for that because they're the ones that allowed it to go in there, so.
Good, maybe they'll be highly motivated to educate everybody. Okay, request a motion.
I make a motion to approve attached interlocal agreement as presented.
Motion?
Second.
And a second. Okay, any further comments from the public? Further comments or thoughts from council members?
I do have one question, one comment, that's all.
Yes, sir.
The proposal, the interlocal that you have, I kind of told Scott, I would send you an original with the sketch, the map actually inserted into it.
Okay.
I brought a copy of it, because at the time I had only sent that as a draft for him to review.
Okay.
So what I could do is I can go ahead and, I gave you I brought a copy of it, but I'll email you the original one for signature.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I don't get this one signed then? Is it
I
different?
would-
I mean, I'm just asking. 'cause
I
it
would
sells to
wait.
get signed.
Yeah, because the one that you have there, the drawing is on a completely separate page. It's not actually within. I think what I had mentioned was if everything was okay, I would send an original all put together. And I was waiting for comments.
I
so-
won't get this one signed then, okay?
No, I'll send it to you tomorrow.
So you're gonna send something
I'm gonna
different than
send
this
that
one?
to you, yes. But that was stapled. I don't think you want to send that one. I'll send you an original that you could print out. Without stapling.
If that's a good one, we can still have that one signed.
We'll just
You're
sign
okay
this
with
one.
that?
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Have a motion and a second. Kathy, would you call the roll, please?
Bishop.
Yes.
Carlisle.
Yes.
Detman.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
Lawrence.
Yes. That brings us to the city clerk's business.
Also needs to approve the payment of
So
bills.
moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any comments from the public?
Who seconded? I'm sorry, I was yelling.
Me.
Okay.